Hey everyone, we're playing Kerbal Space Program and this is Career Mode Mission 4. For my fourth mission, we're going back to Minmus. I know we were just there, but last time we got a whole bunch of science and I bought a bunch of cool new parts, and I think there are enough significant game changers in there to make it worthwhile to go back. First off, we have the SC-9001 Science Junior Materials Lab. That's this component here at the top of the rocket. That's all new, so we should get plenty of science for it along the entire path, which sort of segues into the next component. We have solar panels now. That means we can get electrical power over the course of the journey, so I should be able to use this antenna to transmit back results the whole trip and hopefully get a significant amount of science the entire time. We've also added in a few nice utility pieces. We have some increased battery capacity attached to the lander section here. We've also added stabilizers, or at the very least torque rings, to all of the rocket sections, which should make it significantly easier to control. I also went ahead and replaced the fuel tanks with the longer 800 version fuel tanks just because I had them available. It doesn't really buy us anything, but it does make it a little bit easier to build, and I think it does make the engines less likely to overheat, but I haven't confirmed that. In addition to the fuel tanks, we now have struts to reinforce the structure, although I don't think that's terribly necessary, but it does eliminate the wobble we were seeing before. We've also got some slightly different staging mechanisms here to separate the outer stage from the inner stage. I don't think that really buys us anything either. I just like them a little better because they give me some more room to work. Notable improvements, we have an upgraded aileron or fin. Those are going to give us the ability to do some vectoring and control in lower atmosphere, so this thing should be easier to turn. And we have the launch stabilizers here, which mean that we don't have to be sitting on our engines, so we should be much more stable when we actually take off. The last major change, I've replaced the engine on the innermost rocket with the the LVT-45 vectoring engine, and that gives us, of course, thrust vectoring, so that we should be able to turn even better. So with all of the stabilization and control changes, I feel like the whole rocket should be significantly easier to control and turn during launch. With that said, we've pretty much got everything set up, so we should be good to go. I'm going to go ahead and get this thing out to the launch pad and we'll get started. Hello everyone, and welcome to the launch pad for Kerbal Space Program Career Mission 4. As you can see, we're just sort of sitting on the launch pad, but I am taking the opportunity to gather some scientific data just from the launch pad to sort of exhaust all possibilities in terms of getting scientific research. I know it's probably sort of silly to think that we'd be just sort of sitting on the launch pad gathering data, but at the same time it does give me an opportunity to sort of test to see whether or not I can actually do this reliably during the mission. One thing I have noticed, the transmitter does tend to eat a ton of power. If we are not in direct sunlight, this electric charge drops to zero almost immediately. So we definitely have to be careful about when we are using the transmitter. That said, I'm going to go ahead and do a couple more rounds of this research and transmit cycle, just because I haven't quite wasted all of the diminishing returns on everything just yet. But once that's done, we should be ready to go ahead and launch, get a few readings on the way up. Obviously, we're probably not going to have as many opportunities to do those while we head up the first time, but over subsequent launches, hopefully we'll get more of that data as well, or at least get enough of them this time that it's not worth carrying the parts just for that in subsequent launches. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and keep doing that and speed this up so you don't have to watch the whole thing, or I might just cut out a lot of that repetitive gathering of data and transmit, wait for power, on and on and on, Alright, and with that, we've exhausted all of our science available from the launch pad. So at this point, we're pretty much ready to launch. We're going to set up in a low Kerbal orbit, and of course hang out there for a while doing some more science, just to exhaust all of our potential opportunities. On the flight up, of course, we're probably going to try and gather at least 1 or 2 rounds of data. I was watching, and my electrical charge can support about 2 consecutive transmissions before it starts to run out, and I don't want to use too much of it, because then, of course, my stabilizers stop working, and that makes it sort of annoying to control the spaceship. So again, on the way up, we're probably going to get 2 sets of readings and call it good, maybe more if the rockets generate enough electricity to warrant further transmissions. But I think that's it for now. So with all that said, let's go ahead and get launched. Alright, and we've made it to orbit. Again, now that we're here, we're going to be doing quite a bit of science and just transmitting the results back down to the surface. I think I definitely should have invested in setting up some hotkeys to do this transmit data command, since it seems like that's just, I don't know, might have been good to set all of them up on hotkeys to just sort of gather and transmit the data. But for now, we're going to continue to do it manually. So we're going to spend some time here in orbit. It's going to take us a little longer to gather up charge each time, but we'll go ahead and keep at it and just keep on gathering until we run out of science from diminishing returns, and then we'll go ahead and make the next jump to Minmus. Alright, and with that, about 2 hours into the mission, we have exhausted all of the science available from low Kerbal orbit. At this point, we're going to go ahead and set up for our launch to Minmus. Probably going to go ahead and break the video here for now, just to keep my system from overloading. But in the meantime, I'll go ahead and set up our Minmus encounter and start filming again once I've got that all set up. We're back with Kerbal Space Program Career Mode Mission 4. I've gone ahead and set up the Minmus interceptor trajectory. I thought you guys might get a kick out of this. The way we have it set up, our Minmus periapsis is going to be at about 33 kilometers, which means we'll pretty much be right on target for our Minmus orbit at the height of our encounter. It's pretty rare when you can get an approach that close to a planet, at least for me. I'm sure people who are much better at this game can probably always get exactly where they intend to be. But we are going to try and hit this mark just to see how close we can get. There might be a little bit of trouble. Eventually we are going to run out of fuel in this second stage of the rocket. Unlike last time, I did spend some fuel trying to get us into the same inclination as the Minmus orbit, and that is rather expensive when done near Kerbal. But I just kind of wanted to compare and see how that worked. I don't think I'll do that in the future, but for now, we are going to be pretty close right here. So, with that said, we've got some time before this particular burn, so we're going to go ahead and get this sped up, and hopefully get pretty close to this exact orbit, if not, exactly on it. Alright, and we definitely didn't get as close as last time, um, or at least as close as planned. So we're going to come in at about 150 kilometers up. Still pretty close, relatively speaking. It should give us, a really nice, neat orbit. We're still probably going to come in around, um, 30 kilometers, 35 kilometers before we land, just to make sure we get a good survey of the planet, or moon. But now, pretty much all that's left is to, do some science along the whole route, transmit as often as we can, and hopefully boost our overall score pretty significantly. I'm going to go ahead and speed up through this part of the video since you guys probably don't need to see all of that, but hopefully it won't be taking too long. Alright, and with that we've made it into a stable Minmus orbit. Along the way I kind of decided that maybe I needed to spend a little time further out from Minmus. I was a bit afraid I wouldn't have time to do all the science I wanted to do. Turns out that wasn't worth worrying about. I got all of my diminishing returns pretty quick. Unfortunately, I also realized along the way I'd been forgetting to do my EVA reports. So we're probably going to have to do some more of those on the way back from Minmus, as well as potentially setting up an orbit at Kerbin upon our return at a sort of a low Kerbin orbit, so I can get the EVA reports there before finally landing. Again, we're not going to do EVA reports for takeoff and landing from either place, because that would be suicidal. Hey everyone, we're back with Kerbal Space Program Career Mode Mission 4. At this point we are going to attempt to make a Minmus landing. I spent quite a bit of time in orbit gathering science data. On the way down we're probably going to try and gather just a little bit more, and hopefully transmit that once we land. After we're on the surface, of course, we'll spend quite a bit of time doing various EVAs and taking samples and maybe plant another flag, all this sort of stuff, doing quite a bit of science until we've exhausted all of our resources there. After that, we'll get back out to a stable Minmus orbit and eventually plan our approach back to Kerbin. But for now, first things first, we're going to get to landing. I've picked out a spot tentatively here, sort of close to where we landed originally at Minmus Prime. Again, because the planet will probably rotate in the meantime, I'm likely going to have to do this burn earlier than currently planned, but I'll make adjustments as the video proceeds just to stay on target. Anyway, at this point we're pretty much ready to go, so I'm just going to line up for our trajectory and then get things sped up until we land. Alright, well, a bit of a rough landing for Jeb, indeed. As you can see, I basically toppled the lander, which is going to be no good almost anywhere but Minmus. Minmus, thankfully, is low enough gravity that you can pretty much just turn this thing over using nothing but the RCS. Otherwise, getting back upright after a spill like that is definitely extremely challenging. So, clearly I am not as good at this game as I'd like to be, but for now we have landed, which means we're going to be doing quite a bit of science, some EVAs, all that sort of stuff. Jeb Jeb will be on the surface of Minmus for a while until we have exhausted all of our diminishing returns, and at that point we will set up for a return. But for now, rather than make you guys watch all of that nonsense, well, I might film some of it. I guess we'll at least do the first one so we can see some of our science values, and just in case I plant another flag, you guys can see what Jeb had to say about his visit to Minmus, as opposed to Bill's first statement. So anyway, let's go ahead and get on with the science. As you can see, Jeb is super excited to be here. I'm sure he heard all about Bill's trip over and over and over again from Bill, so he's definitely going to be placing a flag after he takes, of course, a surface sample, makes himself an EVA report, and then we'll go ahead and plant a flag for him and come up with a suitable landing site name and plaque. Alright, looks like Jeb has declared this to be his secret hideout, and no humans allowed. I don't know that Jeb knows what a human is, but maybe it's some sort of mythical creature from their science fiction genre. Who knows? Perhaps some sort of hideous pink-skinned alien of some sort, to borrow a joke from Scott Manley. Anyway, at this point, we're going to get back on the ship, start doing some transmitting, and then just repeat this ad nauseum until we have no more science to return to the planet.
Alright, and we're back with Kerbal Space Program Career Mode Mission 4. We've completed all of our research on the surface of Minmus, so at this point we're going to go ahead and get back into a stable orbit around Minmus and then plot our trajectory back to Kerbin. Alright, at this point we're ready to start descending into Kerbin. I'm going to go ahead and slow the video down at this point. We're pretty much just going to burn through, deploy the chutes, and land wherever we happen to land. So let's go ahead and watch. Alright, and that is the end of Kerbal Space Program Career Mode Mission 4. We came down a little sooner than I expected. I guess I was burning into the atmosphere a little deep there. But either way, very successful mission. 5 days long. Nothing exploded. Nobody died. Let's go ahead and see how much science we got for the whole thing. Alright, let's see. For the mission itself, at least for the recovery of the vehicle, not a whole lot of science, but over the course of the whole mission, it looks like we got a little over 1,000 science, which is just phenomenally high. That's a ton of science. I'm going to be able to buy a ton of parts with that. That is super duper exciting. So I suppose the lesson learned here is solar panels and antennas are the key to just massive amounts of science gain over the course of a mission. Um, I guess from here, it'll be just buying a bunch of parts and seeing what I think I can do next. Anyway, I think that's it for this video. Thanks for watching.